don't show that. Most Americans are worse off than they were a decade ago, and that doesn't even include the sense of insecurity, the loss of jobs, the insecurity about health. Rights that most people in Europe take for granted. In the United States, people, if they lose their job, can lose all access to health care. Now, one of the things that I raised in my article was that if you have a very split society, there are going to be very different views about what's important. If the rich can buy their own parks, they don't need to have public parks. If the rich can buy their own education, we don't have to have public education. If the rich can buy their own health care, we don't have to have good health care for most Americans. And that's where we're winding up today. So the people at the top, that 1%, are using their political power to try to preserve their wealth, and meanwhile making sure that the government doesn't do what is necessary for the prosperity, the functioning of our entire society.
So who's to blame here? Is it politicians asleep at the wheel who are out of touch with reality, or are there greater flaws in the system?
It's both. I mean, there are some really deep flaws in America's political system. Our campaign contributions, Supreme Court said that corporations are people. I mean, philosophically, I find that difficult, but they say because we can't restrain the rights of free speech, corporations have unlimited ability to contribute. And that means they can use their money to get laws that allow them to escape taxation and to shape a political process that really works for them, but not for the rest of the country.
What about the US dollar? Because you're someone who's calling for a new global reserve currency, but why? Because some say, what's the alternative really?
What I argue, and I've argued in my book, Making Globalization Work, is that the dollar reserve currency system contributes to inequality, that poor countries are lending to the United States at close to zero interest rate and then borrowing back at much higher interest rates, inequitable, it contributes to instability, and it actually contributes to a weakening of global aggregate demand, a weak global economy, because if countries are setting aside literally hundreds of billions of dollars, you might say, of precautionary savings, that's money not spent.
China's also been critical of the United States for its policy of quantitative easing. And if I've read your writings correctly, you seem to be saying they have a point. So what is that point?
The point is that U.S. is creating liquidity. U.S. worked very hard to open up global financial markets. And one of the implications of that is when you create liquidity, it can go anywhere in the world it wants. And where is it going? Not where we need it here in the United States. It's going where it's not needed. In China, Brazil, and other countries that don't want it. So it's not only they don't need it, they don't want it. We have to fix the banking system in the United States. Our system of getting money into small and medium-sized enterprises is clogged. And the Federal Reserve has not fixed it. You know, they contributed to the creation of the crisis. They didn't understand the basic economics, but because they didn't understand the problems that they were creating, they didn't really understand how to fix it. And yes, they brought us back from the brink. They saved the big banks, but they have not really gotten our economy going again.
I want to thank you so much for this interview.